Hey, folks, welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa. This is Chris coming to you live from Central Pennsylvania with exclusive South African Municipal 2021 municipal election coverage. 6 hours today, 6 hours tomorrow. We're going to get started here in just a moment. Thanks. I appreciate you tuning to the program. I hope you learned something useful and valuable, maybe to help you make a decision on voting. But let me get started. My first guest is Demi Dudley, coming in from the African Christian Democratic Party. Here we go. Let's get him in here. Excellent.
Right, you're there.
I'm here. Can you hear me fine?
Absolutely, straight in 5.
Excellent. Okay, so let me get this straight because we haven't had a chance to chat at all, other than through, not in person. But is it Demi or Dudley? Do you go Demi or Demi? How do you go? But it's Demi Dudley. What is it?
Okay, it's Demetrius.
Okay. Okay.
Demi is my nickname.
Yep.
And the surname is Dudley.
Okay, Demetrius. Okay, it sounds like you've got some Greek origin there or some Byzantine.
If I really wanted to annoy my mother off, I used to say my mom had a Greek lover, but in actual fact, that wasn't true.
Well,
my parents, do you remember an actor in the 1950s called Victor Mature?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, right. So my dad looked like him. He was 19, 20 years old. They went to movies one night, and there was Demetrius and the Gladiators, Victor Mature. And my dad said when he came out of the movie, my son is going to be called Demetrius. And that was it. That was it.
Well, that was a different time. Victor Mature, Vera Miles, all kinds of actors and actresses back then that people only vaguely remember today. Well, Demetrius, Demi, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be with you. And it's really great to have actually got to know you.
Well, I do appreciate you coming on. This is an exciting time. I've said since June of last year, this is the most consequential election in modern South African history. So far, I haven't found a single person that will dispute what I've said. Would you agree?
Well, having listened to the last interview where you interviewed our leader, Dr. Furlan Christians, he's our provincial leader, I have to agree with everything that you've said.
Well, I got to tell you a little cat out of the bag here. There's a longtime viewer and one of my moderators here named Erica, and she knows you from back in the day.
Way back when, you're talking about maybe in the 80s when we were all young.
Hey, listen, the 80s were the best decade. I'll make no apologies for the 1980s. They were the best decade, hands down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Erica says that you have not changed. Okay, that's good to hear. I assume that's a good thing. We'll go with that. But listen, you're standing for ward councillor there. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm standing for another term of office. A term in South Africa is 5 years. I've had the honor of actually being a sitting councillor in the city of Cape Town for the last 17 years. And my party is the African Christian Democratic Party.
And we should mention that we've talked about that with some other folks in your party. The fact that it's called the African Christian Democratic Party doesn't mean it excludes people not of that faith. That's just that the party has its core principles founded around that, correct?
Absolutely. Our constitution, our mandate, our policies, everything is biblically based, but we firmly believe in the freedom of religion.
Absolutely. Well, as do I. That's why I spent 36 and a half years supporting defending our Constitution. That's an inalienable right, the right to worship freely. So I just got a note here in the conversation already. Francois Ferreira says, Chris, my family and I just cast our special votes in Port Elizabeth on account that he has cancer. I'm so sorry to hear that you have cancer. God bless you, Francois. He's been watching the program for a long time. I didn't know you had cancer. All the best on that. I hope that things go well. But well done. You fulfilled your civil duty, your moral obligation as a South African to get out there and get off your bum and go vote. There's a lot of people be sitting on their bums this weekend and on Monday, especially not voting. And that's not the answer. The answer is to vote and not vote ANC or EFF. So
I could name a few other parties as well, but
I'm trying to remain as unbiased and independent a journalist as I can be. But in the interest of all South Africans, black, white, and brown, I can't honestly, and anywhere in my heart, tell people they should vote for this abject disaster, this betrayal to the liberation struggle that is the African National Congress of the 21st century. They are an absolute disgrace, and their armed wing, their militant wing, known as the Economic Freedom Fighters, is probably also an organization people shouldn't vote for. I know that as an ACDP candidate, there's other parties you don't want people to vote for, but let me ask you this question. So where is your ward at? Can you tell us a little bit about it and some of the challenges your ward faces?
Sorry, say that again. What is the challenge?
Yeah, so where is your ward? Well, I mean, where you're, because you're already in government. So where have you served at as a ward councillor? And what are some of the challenges that your ward faces?
First of all, I have never served as a ward councillor.
Oh, my mistake. My mistake. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm in actual fact a proportional representative ward councillor, and that's one of the beauties of our constitution. And it's the fact that yes, the winner takes all when you're doing a ward election. But the fact is that there is another system called the proportional representative system, where the votes are all added up. The votes for your party are all added up afterwards. That percentage against how many seats are available ascertains how many PR councillors can come in. So as I said, I've been blessed the last 17 years to be able to serve my party and my city. And I've been on various portfolios. At the moment, I'm on economic opportunities and asset management. I've been on transport for almost 12 years, disciplinary committee. So you get to be able to serve and to be able to make decisions in these portfolios, which obviously at the end of the day, you're hoping that it's going to bless the city and bless everybody else as well, that it's for their benefit.
Well, could you tell folks not which ward, but which city you represent?
I'm actually in the city of Cape Town, and it's quite amazing that my parents were born in the Cape, but they went north. My son, when they were young and they got married, and they went off to Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. I was born there, fought in the war, and came down in 1980. And eventually, because my wife was actually called to national parliament as a member of parliament in 1999, we relocated, and I've basically landed up in the city of my fathers.
Well, that is interesting, that journey back to the mother city. It just always calls people back. It's interesting. It's an amazing place, quite wonderful weather, fascinating people there. There's no doubt about that. The Cape Town, the mother city, Western Cape, really interesting mix of peoples there. But you mentioned something there, Rhodesia. So you were born in Rhodesia. Whereabouts?
I, in actual fact, was born in Bulawayo.
Ah, Bulawayo. Been there.
Bulawayo. Yeah. Lavangula country. And for those who don't know, he was actually a king in that area. But I was born there. I was educated there, and I eventually, after my stint in the police force, I went up after school. I went up and joined the police, British South African Police, and I was seconded, much to my disappointment, because I always wanted to be a policeman, you know. But as soon as we, in actual fact, finished our basics, the top 12, the guys, the top 12, we were all, the line was drawn and said, you're off to support unit, which was an anti-terrorist unit. And so that's where I found myself. And quite frankly, I was blessed to have served with some wonderful men. And after that, I, in actual fact, left the force, although we did camps, which was basically 6 weeks in, 6 weeks out, that type of thing for a period of years. I went and studied at Teachers College and became a high school teacher. And that's where in 1980, when the government changed, we decided that we were in actual fact going to head south.
Well, let me ask you this question. Have you ever had a chance to go back to Zimbabwe since 1980, or is this a place you never got a chance to go back to?
Excuse me. I, in actual fact, have had quite a few opportunities to go back over the years, especially in the 80s. I was a national sales manager for a clothing factory, so I traveled around Southern Africa extensively. And I used to do trips to Botswana and then be able to hop over the border to see my parents and family and then back again and carry on working. But my last trip was in 2004. And I had the honor of being able to go on a road trip with my dad. And the sad thing is that we never ever got to do a road trip again after that. But we both went back to the city that we loved. And now, after having been back there so long ago, when people ask me that question, I'll say to them, I'll go back if I'm on a private jet. They fly me straight to Bulawayo, and helicopter me into a place called Matopus.
Yep.
And that's where Cecil John Rhodes is buried.
Indeed.
After whom the Rhodesia was named. Drop me at Malimi Dam for a week to listen to the fish eagles, to fish, to just climb through the koppies, little hills and mountains and whatever, and then come and collect me and take me home. But there's no ways I'm going to do a road trip or actually go there. I honestly, I have lost nothing as far as what God has given me now and replaced it with. But what is quite amazing that with the job that I've got as a councillor and just having a servant heart, I meet Zimbabweans every day in Cape Town. And I get to the point where I'm giving them bread all the time. I'm helping them out. I'm giving them extra jobs to do on the sideline. They call me Baba, Dad. So my Zimbabweans come to me. I don't have to go there, you know. So South Africa is my home. This is where Sherilyn, my wife, and myself, as I said, Sherilyn was in politics, national parliament with the Acdp for 20 years. I got hooked onto it, and that's where totally sold out to godly governance. And this is our home. This is our home.
Well, I've got a soft spot for Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. It's one of the first places in Africa that fascinated me. I followed it for decades, and I've watched with heartbreak as it was pilfered in the 80s. I watched I can never pronounce it, Gukurunda, the second time, when they went into Matabeleland and murdered so many people, the North Korean train unit. And I just, I did Joshua Nkoma, and, I just watched the whole thing. And, it's interesting because they say nasty things about roadies, but Rhodesians that I've met have never lived up to the reputation that they were given by others, white Rhodesians I'm talking about. For instance, the way that Roy Bennett was treated abysmally in Zimbabwe. Pacheco, as was called by his constituents, 98% of whom were Black, who voted for him overwhelmingly time and again. Yeah, but the racists there just can't stand that sort of thing. They just can't stand it to break the narrative. But we could talk about Rhodesia, Zimbabwe forever. In fact, Lynn is from there, and she said she's only going to go back when ZANU-PF is gone. Well, unfortunately, it's going to be a long wait. They are entrenched for, it seems like, to eternity, or perhaps when the resurrection happens, maybe that's when ZANU-PF will leave. I'm not sure, but let's switch to South Africa and talk about that. So you've served on the Cape Town City Council for a number of years now, and then you're on the proportional representation list again to if your party picks up enough votes to come back there. How's it looking for the Acdp? You sent me a video of you speaking, stumping on the rally. We'll put that up in a little bit and show the viewers. But how is it? Is the enthusiasm there? Can you compare it to 2016? Are you feeling better, or is it about the same, or maybe it's a little less enthusiasm? Which is it?
God is good, and God gives people the choice to love him or to reject him. And in the same ways, he's not going to turn around and say, I'm going to bless you, or I'm not going to bless you today. God actually, when you look at his scripture, he tells you that if my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray, and then he slips this other little thing that says, turn from your evil ways, then I'll hear your prayers and I will bless your land. So we've come to a point, you mentioned 2016, we've actually come to a point now where things have really got bad in this country. We've always known that there's been some form of corruption, but it has escalated to the point that service delivery, we don't have a railway system in this country anymore. This country, we talk about Cecil John Rhodes and he was such a bad guy and whatever, but it was his vision to have a train go all the way from Cape Town all the way to Cairo. And that train went through Botswana, went to Rhodesia, went north, and there's no train system in South Africa. It's disgraceful. Road transport has been taken over by taxi drivers who are ruthless. they are unscrupulous. They are extremely dangerous drivers. They break every law that you can think of according to the road rules. And the Eskom is failing us to the point where it was mentioned the other day. We're back on load shedding again. Load shedding all of a sudden appeared again about 5-6 days ago, but it appeared after Eskom asked for another increase of, I think it was almost 18%, possibly 19% in the rates that they wanted to charge. And an organization called NERSA that governs us, and they refused it. Guess what happened? Stage 2, boom, that's it, lights out, good night, sweetheart, end of story. So now government steps in and says, oh no, over the election period and this weekend, there's not going to be load shedding, it'll be stage 2 and all this type of thing. So how can they now, who are they getting heavy with? Instead of over all the years, it's been apparent, go after the thugs that actually raped our country, that destroyed those organizations. Go after those guys. Attach everything that they've got. Start getting some of the money back. You know what I'm saying? And start rebuilding. Don't call the Chinese in, for goodness sake. We've got enough people in this country. And I'm not being racist when I say it now. We've got a lot of white intellect. We've also got a lot of, in 27 years, unbelievable young African, colored, Indian youth that have gone through varsity, that are capable of, in actual fact, assisting to rebuild this country. But where are those kids going? London. Here we come. We're losing it. So in short, things have deteriorated really badly here. But I come back to praise God that it's hurting people now. And instead of Christians thinking, the mindset that they've always had is they've said, let's rather have a larger opposition and then have a whole lot of small parties. So the lie of the DA of a vote for a small party is a vote for the ANC is nonsense, okay? Because, if I can jump in here as well, that in 2006, Mama India Mfeketo was the ANC mayor of the city of Cape Town. We went to the polls, we came back, Acdp had 7 councillors, and we had to now decide, because no one had the majority. That's the beauty of multi-party democracy, if no one's got the majority. So the DA were looking for friends. So we went and approached the Freedom Front, the New National Party. We actually even approached the Muslim Party, 2 members, UDM, all these guys. And we said to them, guys, we feel that if we take our votes and we actually stand with the DA, we'd be able to understand them more and what they want for the people of Cape Town than the ANC, okay? Which is like winner takes all, that type of thing. But little did we know that in actual fact, the animal called the DA had its own agenda. So we went to Zilla and we actually said to her, she was now the person who was nominated to be the mayor. This is what we are envisaging. Would you like to join up with us? She laughed at us. She said, you're such a small party. How can you dictate? We showed her a document. We've got signatures on here of 17 people, different people, councillors from parties. And we're prepared to give it to you. But obviously, you're the only one out that's not in this agreement at the moment. She joined us. Cut a long story short, we went to the votes. Do you know that we won the city of Cape Town? And I say we because it was the smaller parties that linked up with the DA. We won the city of Cape Town by 1 vote in 2006. 1 vote. It was so bad that one day we had a meeting. Somebody was in the infectious disease hospital. There was a DA lady. They brought her in an ambulance, put her in a glass cage so that she could vote, so we could still have the majority. But little did we know was that the DA already had gone and started buying out other councillors from other parties. Patricia de Lille from the Good Party now had formed the ID in 2006. She came galloping in because, again, it was, let's take back from the whites what they've stolen from us and whatever. And she convinced a lot of people to vote for the ID. She marched into council with 22 councillors. Once a phenomenal start. She gave her vote to the ANC. And you know what? She was after position. She was after power. And she lost it by one vote. And eventually, when she crossed the floor, we pulled out of this, we call it a regering van samenwerking, a cooperative government. We pulled out of it after 2 years because we knew that we couldn't trust the DA anymore. She crossed the floor a year later in 2009, which was the last crossover period. A horrible animal as well. That you vote for a party and they take your vote and give it to somebody else. Anyway, it's no more. But she crossed the floor and she joined the DA, became the premier of the province. Do you know how many councillors she had left? She had 10 left from the 22 because they'd already crossed the floor and been bought out by the DA. That's the type of politics that we've had to deal with here in this country. But I see that God has been stirring people's hearts and that things are coming right. I can see people saying, we need change. And you know what, Chris? It's not just change to get rid of the ANC. It's change to bring the DA to a point where they realize that they can't actually do what they want to with their own liberal agendas.
Well, you've brought up a lot of topics there, and this is turning more into an interesting conversation about South Africa's electoral history. One of the things you talk about there, I've talked about this many, many times. I railed against. The irony is that smaller parties are the ones that demanded the floor crossing opportunity. It is the most undemocratic, corrupt, morally bankrupt concept that was ever designed by any vile politician ever. That's what I'll say about it. And for my international audience, don't know what we're talking about. There was a period of time in South Africa's modern history in majority rule in which you could, for 2 weeks, every parliamentary session, leave your political party and go join another political party. Now, why would that be a problem? Well, because, if the ANC wanted to eliminate some competition, they just offer someone a deputy ministerial position and a blue light escorts and a salary and a cushy job, and they're still a member of parliament, but now they're part of the ANC. Now, the problem with this is that you have a system in which you vote for a party, not for a candidate. And this is also a serious problem with South Africa's democracy, in my view. You don't vote for a candidate. So candidates are not beholden to the voters. They're beholden to the party who got the percentage, and that's who they're loyalty to. And we see this play out in the Western Cape. You talk about the ANC ruling there for a while in Cape Town. The ANC had this practice of deploying their cadres. In other words, sending their incompetent idiots who aren't even from the same region as the people they're representing down to Western Cape and other places. And they come down there and they don't listen to the voter. They listen to Latuli House. That's who they answer to. And that floor crossing thing just robbed people of their vote. Because as you said, let's say the Acdp got 10% in Cape Town. That would be really, let's say you got 10%. In a floor crossing exercise, you could leave the party and join another party, and then your party was just robbed of its power. And it's just a really disgraceful thing. A lot of people don't know about that. Fortunately, as you said, that is gone now. That was an absolute disgrace.
2009 got rid of it. But I just want to say something. You mentioned the smaller parties were in favor of it. The DA was a smaller party in the
that's
bigger
correct
context, and they voted with the ANC to bring in floor crossing because they knew it was going to benefit them.
Well, in the end, it didn't benefit them as well as they thought it was going to. I think maybe they have buyer's remorse at the end of that. Hey, folks, you're listening to Chris Wyatt Africa here on extensive 2021 municipal election coverage for South Africa. It's Saturday, the 30th of October. Tomorrow's Halloween. And the Crew Dragon Crew 3 launch for SpaceX is going up at 2:21 in the morning. Oh, I'll be up early covering that. So you might want to tune in for that and catch it here live on Chris Wyatt Africa. But right now, I've got Demi Dudley on here, who is a councillor in the mother city of Cape Town. We're talking, talking about prospects for the ACDP, the party he's a member of, also about some of the historical, the electoral history of South Africa. Now, you mentioned Patricia de Lille. Now, I've asked her to come on my program, but I don't know the message even gets to her. But I mean, if there was ever a political opportunist, it would, her name, you go to the dictionary, it would be Patricia de Lille. She in the ANC, doesn't like it, leaves, forms her own party. The first chance she gets, she abandons her own party, joins another party. Next chance she gets after she's mayor and premier, she abandons that party and then creates another party. Now she's in the good party. I think it's her like 35th party in the last 15 years, it seems like.
Yeah, Patricia, Auntie Pat, they call her Auntie Pat. The sad thing is that it's basically, it's a racist party. It's not a party like the ACDP, which is incumbent of all races. When I talk about brothers and sisters in Christ, I don't talk about that lightly. I've had the pleasure of being able to not only look after a large region here in Cape Town, preparing them for the elections, but I've actually been looking after the region which is called the Breede Vallei, which is Worcester, Rivier, the Doorns. I've been looking after Langeberg, which is also the Robertson area. The most wonderful, delightful people, farm people, and everyone loves Jesus, and everybody wants his kingdom to come here on earth. You know, they want godly governance. They're tired of being ripped off. They're tired of being lied to. And the most important thing for myself is that when I have to, let me describe my role in the council, okay? Because it can't be about the money. I've already said it to so many people. The younger guys come in the DA with their tight jeans and their pointy shoes and whatever, and I look at them, and I'm wearing the T-shirt and denims. You know what the reason is? Is because I go into places like Gugulethu, Langa, Delft, Manenberg. I go into these places because that's where the needs are. And then you hear from the DA and they say to you, oh no, we're a city that cares. And the signboards even basically say, you know, we're doing it well, so let's do it better, you know, or these type of things. Who are they kidding? Who are they kidding? Because when you go into these places, I deal with complaints where I report these issues, I go and see them, I take photographs, I take it to the mayor. It's like water off a duck's back because the officials are not doing their jobs, because the DA councillors who are in charge, the directors, these type of guys are not doing their job. You know, yes, we've had COVID and everybody's working from home, but things are still not getting done. Stormwater drains are blocked. Roads are full of potholes. Sewages are overflowing in the streets. And, the people destroy the infrastructure. That's why it's like that. If they're destroying the infrastructure, it's because of frustration. We have to be servants. We have to be servants. We have to have a servant heart. Go in there and show them that you care. Don't tell them that you care. Show them that you care. Make a difference. And it's the same when I deal with issues in affluent areas, because there's no such thing as white and black areas anymore, really, in Cape Town. There's affluent areas. There are people who have actually got nice jobs, middle class, got good jobs. It's all races. But they often have the same type of problems. But who does the administration in the city go after for rates and taxes? The person in the affluent areas or in the middle to affluent areas. People are getting to a point now where they actually are buckling under the rates, the taxes, the expenses, the cost. Yeah, okay, the cost of electricity isn't necessarily a city's priority. But when it comes to water, you know, you've got to pay 150 Rand just to actually have your water every month to have it connected. But when the pipe bursts and there's and the water's getting wasted and you phone it in, and then like I've had to do, Councillor, please help us. What you reported last week still hasn't been repaired. I go, I follow it, I log, I get a reference number again. And you know what? I get told by the official on the other side, I sympathize with you, Councillor, because this is happening every day. Because the people, the staff, are not actually doing what they're supposed to. It goes from the technicians to the engineers, and that's where it is. That's where it ends. And lights out in an area because, granted, the lights have been vandalized in the poorer areas, the whole street goes out, and guess what increases? House break-ins, house break-ins, you know?
Assaults, robberies.
Yeah. So,
well, let's take a look at this.
Not good.
No, they're not. And they've, you know, objectively, I mean, people may have a constitution that guarantees their right to this, that, and the other. But for most South Africans across the board, they're in worse shape than they were in 1990. It really is sad, you know, and it unfortunately gives credence to the people who, you know, said, see, you know, majority rule doesn't work. Black Africans can't rule themselves, but that's nonsense. Of course, we know that they can. We've heard examples of it. The point here is that corrupt people can't rule. Inept people can't rule. That's the problem in South Africa. Now, 2016, your party got 61,966 votes in the wards, and then 62,000 proportional, which is how you got into the city council, the proportional. Now, that's not a large number. So I'm looking at 2021 and going, you know what? There is fertile ground here for the Acdp to pick up some votes, along with a lot of other of the smaller parties like the Freedom Front Plus and some of these others like the UDM. How are you feeling about this? Do you guys have a sense that you can top that number? And if you can top it, do you think it's going to be a big showing? I mean, I don't mean to put you on a line here, but you know the Mother City, you know the Western Cape. You've been on the ground, you've been campaigning. How are you feeling about this compared to 2016?
I have great expectations. I have a great God, but I also know that God expects us to actually get out there and do the graft. So I've got great expectations. But what's wonderful is that because of the political environment as it is, by the fact that the ANC has failed, by the fact that the DA has been seen to actually not be as transparent as they say they are. We should go on to fruitless and wasteful expenditure later, and I'll give you some facts about what's going down there in the city of Cape Town. But people want change. But if there are any Christians out there who are listening to us, please pray for South Africa. Pray for Cape Town, pray for its people, but also pray that God will soften hearts and lift the scales from their eyes. Because I heard something so sad on the radio yesterday. There was one of these sort of 60-second polls, phone in and tell me who you're going to vote for and all this type of thing. And it ended up that the ANC were going to get 9 votes. The DA was going to get 5. The EFF were going to get 5. Acdp was going to get 1. Freedom Front was going to get 1, and all the other small parties weren't even mentioned. But as I said, it's a snap poll. But the one guy that came on, when they asked him, it's an African guy, why are you voting for the EFF? And he said, you know, I have been a loyal member of the EFF, of the ANC for many, many, many years. But with the corruption, they're letting us down. I'm voting EFF. And the guy said, but why? He said, no, I know where you're coming from. He says, actually, they can't be trusted. They volatile, you know, they want to steal land and whatever. But I believe that that's going to be the kick up the ANC's backside to wake them up and get them going again. It's not going to work. It's going to be more destruction. But on the other hand, one of the points, and when you look at a municipal election, you should be talking about service delivery, what you're going to do for the people, how things are going to improve. Are you going to be able to control rates and taxes? Are you going to be able to help people who need to be indigent so that they can afford it? Because you know what, Chris, you know how many guys, people are out there that bought houses 40 years ago, 50 years ago. They're now in their 80s. And they can't afford the rates and taxes. They can't afford the cost of the water. And you know that the Acdp, through myself, brought it up in a speech once in the city of Cape Town. And I was speaking about it and about the indigency, the policy. Do you know what the deputy mayor of the city of Cape Town, a DA member, said? I won't mention his name. He said, if they can't afford to live there, they must sell their houses. and move into a place that they can afford. You know what? When they were hard-working taxpayers, school teachers, government officials, and all that type of thing 40, 50 years ago, and they were working hard to put their kids to school and whatever and pay their house off, then they were actually appreciated. Now, listen, you're getting old, you can't afford it, you don't have the money, sell your house. That's not the way that a party with empathy, a party that values its citizens actually reacts. You understand what I'm saying?
I get you. That's absolutely crazy. It's heartless. Such a thing should be said. It's the reason they can't afford it is because the city's overcharging and under delivering, and people on fixed incomes at that stage in life. There's a couple things you've talked about I really want to get back to, not at the moment because I need to get to some of the chat, but we'll get back to this. It's not just the ANC that needs to get a PK. It's also the DA that needs to get a little slap upside the head here. So we'll talk about that, and I've got a couple super chats from one of my viewers here in the US, but let me get to some of these comments, questions. So Erica said that you and Sherilyn have a painting of hers, the Fortrekker Monument, which actually hung in Parliament for a little while. That's interesting. Didn't know that.
You say a bull?
No, a painting. She made a painting.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
yeah. No, Erica is a very artistic lady.
Yes.
And
he said artistic, not autistic, artistic.
Artistic, yeah. One of those long hair, beads, long skirts, Jesus sandal types, painters or whatever. Yeah. But she's a great person.
She is indeed.
And when Sherilyn went to Parliament, and she was called in 1999 to Parliament, Erica presented her with a painting, and Sherilyn hung it in a beautiful painting, and she hung it in her office for 20 years. And when Sherilyn decided that she had enough of small party politics and that she's a nation builder, she in actual fact made sure that the painting went back to Erica. So it's back in her possession now. Yeah.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Erica. Debbie says that her road trip to sites today was horrendous as all the traffic lights were out. Load shedding is still taking place today, despite what we've been told. Malcolm Clote says that his family and himself were instrumental in the starting of the Armstead Taxi Association, 4th Street, Windberg, Joburg. He said there are good people in the organization, because earlier you're talking about all the criminal activity, and there's like these assassinations in broad daylight in the taxi industry are just horrendous.
Yeah, I think we should be talking about up to date. You speed it up, because if you don't mind me interrupting, when they were burning and looting in Durban, we didn't have it here.
Yeah,
but you know what we had? We had taxi wars that were getting slaughtered left, right, and center. And what is it all about? They want control. In actual fact, closing down the bus system. Yep. And that's another mistake that the city, the DA administration made, that when they started the My City interchanges and whatever, they bought out the taxis from the Taxi Association. Guess what? They made sure that all their old vehicles were bought. They got enough money to go buy new ones without a taxi license, and they hit the roads again. Taxi warfare doesn't only affect the city, but you got to understand the citizens that live in those townships that have to get to work to feed their families. Yep. Those people are standing there every day because the tax, and they drive like hooligans. Like it or not, it's the truth.
And if they're driving a combi that seats 9, there's 27 people in the back of that vehicle, and maybe one.
Oh, absolutely! Don't forget the ones on the roof, eh?
Yeah, and maybe one of the 4 brakes. One of the most eye-opening things I ever saw. I'm a big fan of Carte Blanche, although I haven't seen it in several years. But back over 20 years ago, I was watching a Carte Blanche episode in which they went out and they did an undercover investigation of one of these vehicles. I think it was in Pietermaritzburg. But anyway, they went out and they investigated. Brett just gave another super chat. Brett, I'll catch up with the super chats here in a moment. Thank you. So they went out, and what happened was there were 2 police officers, and they were undercover watching it. And this taxi guy went to them to get the sticker that they'd been inspected. And it's a black and white police officer, and they took a bribe. And then the Carte Blanche actually took the vehicle to a testing station themselves independently. And of course, there's 4 brakes, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, each wheel. They tested all 4 brakes. 3 were completely failed. No brake power whatsoever. The only brake that functioned was the driver's side brake at 18% of its rated capacity. So instead of 400% of braking power, they were operating on 18%. And that just really, that was astounding. And all the people, children, school kids in there, people in the back of those things, it's frightening what happens. Really crazy stuff. Now, there's a question here from Lawrence 007 that's shaken, not stirred, as in James Bond. But Lawrence 007 says, ask Demi about the ACDP stance on religion in schools. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. You can't take Christ out of, or a religious instruction out of the schools. We've been fighting it right from the beginning. We've never voted for it. In actual fact, if I could also say, did you say Lawrence?
Lawrence, yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Yeah. In actual fact, it doesn't only end there. As far as that, we want to have prayer back in the school. We want religious instruction back into the school. But it's also the interference of the education department with the rights of the parents. We in actual fact, the ACDP, on the 26th of April, we actually had a gathering outside the Western Cape legislature because the MEC member in charge of education in the Western Cape, she in actual fact was talking about that the children, the parents have no right to interfere on the sexual gender identification of their children, and that psychiatrist, the headmaster, would have the full control that if he saw a little boy who was crying and he was upset, and why are you crying? Because the boys don't want to play with me. And are you comfortable being a boy? I play better with little girls. Well, what's your name? David. Well, let's call you Davinia from now. This is the type of law that they were trying to bring into the Western Cape. DA, all right? And we were the only party that picketed against it. We handed over a memorandum to her department as well. Don't interfere in the rights of the parents. And that's exactly the same that we're fighting right now. We had a gathering outside Parliament last night. That thing where you saw me on the stage, that's where Kenneth Leshwe, our president, actually again reiterated our stance. Now, I mentioned that basically local government is all about service delivery and that type of thing. But people need to know what is our background, who we stand for, what we stand on. And in this country now, we've got a point where you are being told you have to have the jab, you have to have the vaccine. Now, the ACDP is the only party in South Africa that is in actual fact standing up against it. We went to court yesterday. This is for Lawrence. Yesterday, we went to court in Pretoria, where we lodged an application against the fact that children who have been told that from the age of 12 at school can now have the jab. We've lodged an application that no ways do you touch that child without the parent's permission. You don't take the parent out of the equation. So in the same way, coming back to Lawrence's issue about where do we stand, we believe in Christian values. We believe that there should be some form of opening in prayer. You know, I remember when I was at school in Rhodesia, there were people of different religions there, and they were accommodated. If the Jehovah Witnesses didn't like what we were doing, saying prayers, singing songs, hymns, and whatever, they were instructed by their own pastors or whatever priests. They went to a classroom and they did that. And freedom of religion. But don't touch our children. The parents have got the rights, and it even comes down to what the curriculum is. Our parents should have the right to be able to tell the education department what we need our children to be taught. I'm not talking about the science and everything, whatever. Sure. But I'm also talking about, you don't come and teach about a deviant or different types of gender, you don't
sexualize children in primary school. I think that's where you're headed.
No, absolutely. And the parents are the ones that need to actually be able to deal with any social issues. Not the school, not the education department, not the head of education.
Well, in fact, I mean, you're absolutely correct. And that's the problem here in the States. Here, our schools are funded directly in most instances from property taxes. I pay thousands of dollars per year to a local school district that is actually larger than the tax bill for services in my community. That's only half as much, less than half. So the school gets the bulk of the lion's share of my taxes, which is a lot of money. I mean, even if I didn't have a mortgage, I'd still have to have thousands of dollars a year just to retain my home to pay local taxes. It's crazy how much it is. But the thing is that here in the States, we've seen this fight break out recently with this racist critical race theory, teaching people to be ashamed of who they are, that based on their skin pigmentation, they're inherently a racist. It's unbelievable. And it's so people have gotten involved, school boards, we've got a lot of stuff going. Also, this effort to create rules that allow fake transgenders, not genuine transgender people, to use restrooms. And then we wind up seeing girls raped in schools here. It's crazy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a dangerous situation. That a door that we're opening that's going to actually destroy many lives.
Well, these immoral people that on the political left have succeeded over the past 50 years in doing the following. First off, you can't discipline your child. Now, I'm not talking about beating a child, but the corporal punishment has merit to it, in my view. So you can't discipline your child or you'll be brought up on charges, something like that. Then they sexualize your children by teaching them to masturbate as primary school children and introducing them to sexual orientations. Then they they come up with 1,000 genders. Then now they're teaching people that they're inherently racist based on skin pigmentation. All of these things are meant to steal your children from you. And now they're talking about injecting your children against your will. Now, when you go for measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination, that child doesn't get the jab at the school unless you've consented to that. So why should it be different than anything else? It's really frightening. So I appreciate where you're coming from. Brett had a question here. He gave a super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Brett. Will the ACDP work with the Freedom Front Plus? My answer, I suppose, would be yes. I can't imagine anything different. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We do believe that there are some differences in our constitution and where we stand. But I'm not going to judge anybody who says that they are a child of God, they believe in Jesus Christ as their personal savior. There's no ways I'm going to argue with that. And in actual fact, even in the city of Cape Town, right now, the Freedom Front has one person that's sitting in council at the moment. Lovely person. And she often comes to caucus with us. She'll come across and she'll say, guys, where do you stand on this issue? What do you think? In actual fact, I was quite naughty when the ex-Freedom Front stroke DA speaker of almost 16 years resigned recently, and they were going to replace him with somebody else, obviously from the DA. I put in a nomination for my colleague, who actually at one stage filled the position of deputy mayor for the city of Cape Town in 2006 to 2008. And the Freedom Front, in actual fact, they seconded the situation because we work together. You'll find that a lot of our train of thought, where we come theologically, where we come as far as our belief is concerned, what we want for the people of South Africa, I'm sure a lot of that they want as well. So yes, very short, we will definitely work with them.
Now, Eric,
there are other parties too. There are other parties.
Sure.
But we have to be careful. We have to be careful that everybody who says, Lord, Lord, will not be acknowledged by the Lord Jesus Christ. He'll say, I didn't know you. And that's actually, if I could just quickly say to you, is something that's happening at the moment. There's an article that I was reading, and it basically was to do, I can't find it now, but it was basically about people who are calling themselves prophets, but in actual fact, they've been warned by the writers of these articles, be careful. Just because they say that we are based on biblical principles doesn't mean that in actual fact that they actually are. Because, for instance, we've got one party that's actually risen up now, and it's an ex-gang lord leader and drug lord leader. And he's professing that he's saved. I'm not going to say I doubt that or whatever. But as the writer of the article points out, when he says that we are based on biblical principles, but when you look at his manifesto or you look at his constitution, his belief in God is in actual fact not there. In the living God, it's not there. So he says it, but it's not there in writing. So this is unfortunately how people can get hoodwinked as well. But what comes in with that type of thing, Chris, is the fact that they say, we're going to write off all your debt. So your council houses that you guys got, and you're so much in debt, we're going to write it off. And they go around handing out food parcels and basically buying votes. And at the end of the day, those guys are going to cry as much as they've been crying now for the last how many years.
No, absolutely. I can see where you're coming from. That people who are really just, I not naming anybody in particular, but really they're just charlatans. That's what we're talking about here. So let me catch up a little bit more here. Erica said that ACDP had their introductory launch at her church, St. George's Presbyterian, and she met Kenneth Mishwe and future party leaders there, Sherilyn Dudley, and I went to many meetings together, she said. After that, let's see, we've got Brett asked a question. I don't know if you want to discuss this. He was a guest on my program, now with the Freedom Front Plus banner, but he's moved over to that party, and that's Leonard Max as a mayoral candidate for Cape Town. If you want to, I'm sure you probably know him. Any comments or any thoughts? If you'd like to, you have no obligation to. We can move on.
I don't know him personally.
Oh, okay.
Just following him in the newspaper. He's an extremely articulate person. He's extremely educated, well educated. He's respected, but I'm wary to comment on this because, sometimes people get desperate and they start headhunting and putting people into positions. So you can say, look who we've got as the mayoral elect. Look who we've got as and these are guys on our list now. And
well, it's also
if
unfair.
It's genuine, time will tell.
It's also it's a bit unfair. I think that's why I say you don't have to comment on the question, because it's a possibility that you may enter into coalition with the party that he represents, whether you're in favor or against him. So it really isn't germane. I don't think so. But Brett did ask a question. We've addressed it. Thank you for the question, Brett. Let's see. So,
Chris, if I could just go back to that very, very quickly.
Sure.
Again, if the parties go into some form of I don't like the word coalition, but we're going to some working relationship that's going to take the city forward.
Yeah.
Remember, we're working with the party. We're not actually, it's not about the individual who's there. His party will keep him under control, or will give him a mandate or whatever, as our party will give us mandates, and we will then work together for the good of the city. So we don't have a problem with that. Not at all.
Brett's also given a very generous super chat here of $10. Thank you, Brett. It's an odd question for my guest, and I don't know. I'm gonna read what he had to say. But in Limpopo, it's a bit far away from the mother city, but in Limpopo, thoughts on the Freedom Front Plus's black candidate Godfrey Skosana. I'm not sure if he will get elected, but he's gaining influence there. Some people in Limpopo are willing to give the Freedom Front Plus a chance. I think maybe that last part there is something maybe we could focus on. I don't know if you want to talk about that. Is it I've been very disturbed for a long time about a lot of South Africans who always just throw things out. Well, whites vote for the DA. It's a white party. Well, black people always vote for the ANC. The blacks will always. That's nonsense. Informed voters will make informed decisions. The question is, are the voters informed? Would you agree with that sentiment, or do you think I'm off the money there?
I think the political parties inform the electorate as much as they want them to know. And talking about the guy in Limpopo, I seriously hope that he was placed there in earnest, and that they were doing a righteous thing, that it's good for race relationships. He's most probably a phenomenal guy. And even, being in a supposedly Afrikaans white organization, that guy might actually excel and bring races together and bring healing. So I have no problem with that.
Cool. So Malcolm,
what was the last bit that you just asked me about?
Oh, no, I was just saying that I basically, my point is that what Brett is saying, he asked a question, but he's also kind of made a statement. Basically, the statement is that he thinks that there are black voters in Limpopo who are going to be willing to give the Freedom Front Plus a chance. And my argument with that is that I think that's definitely the case across the country for all sorts of parties. Excuse me, something just happened. So
I have to agree with that.
Yeah, so
I believe that there's a lot of people, like, for instance, let's go back to Zimbabwe now.
Sure.
How many years has it been since Mugabe took over the country? But I'm telling you that you will hear the elderly and even the young, they will say, things weren't like this when it was run by Ian Smith. The things weren't like this when it was run by the whites. Now, I'm not saying that they did the right thing. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that there was a standard to which those guys actually were trying to get to. They appreciated the standard of living, the salaries, the whatever, to a point now where the domestic that works for me, she's Zimbabwean. Her brother died in a car accident about 2 weeks ago. He was a conductor on a bus. That company has refused to pay 1 cent. They're not going to pay his salary. They're not paying for the funeral. They caused the accident, but that's their lot. They just humbly accept it. And I think the electorate needs to be looking at our constitutions. They need to look at our track record. Yeah, we might be small, but we have achieved. If I can just point out the fact that at Parliament, we had 3 members of Parliament, okay? One of them, which happens to be my wife, Cheryl Lynn, worked on private members' bills for years. She put 5 ones that were against. Are you there?
I'm here. Your camera went off.
Okay.
Whoops. Well, we lost him. Hopefully he'll be back in a moment. Yeah. Some other super chats here. Malcolm said, yeah, that was 30 years ago talking about the taxi thing. I think that when he must have pushed forward, he must have bumped himself off. So let's give him a second to get back here. My guest is Demi Dudley, Demetrius Dudley, a member of the African Christian Democratic Party who represents Cape Town, proportional councillor there in Cape Town. So hopefully we'll get him back, or hopefully I don't think his battery died. I think he must just hit it. So we'll see if he gets back with us in a moment. But if he doesn't, that's okay. We'll keep it going here. Jake is asking him to mention the DA members by name. He's gone, so I can't ask that question now, but thank you for that. And then Helen talks about what about the rights of teachers? That's a fair question. R1 asked a question here, a couple of questions. He's asking about why more people don't vote for the ACDP. I think from my point of view, I don't, Demi's not here. He's coming back. Okay, he's coming back. Here we go. So, oops, now you're turned sideways. So now that we've had the intervention from the South, can you turn your, there you go. There you go. No, it's there. There it is. There it is. Yeah. Now that we've had the intervention of the South African intelligence services cutting off your mobile service.
In actual fact, it was my wife trying to say, "Where are you? We're waiting to eat."
Oh, okay. Well, we'll just
go. They went off for a 90th birthday. My mother-in-law's 90th birthday lunch today, and they said, "We haven't eaten. Are you coming?" You know, and that was their call that cut me off. You know? Okay.
Well, we'll get you out here shortly. You've been very generous with the time. Let me just get through a couple.
But I'm having fun. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So your mother-in-law can wait. Well, I tell you what, I don't make many 90-year-olds wait. That's you know. But anyway, okay. So Malcolm Clothy was the gentleman who talked about helping set up the taxi association in Joburg years ago. He said, "Yeah, you're right. That was 30 years ago," and he smiles. Yeah. It was a long time ago, and then it was a good thing that Jake ask you now, if you're gonna mention the DA members in the meeting, call him out by name. He's a DA supporter, but we're not going to do that. That's I think bad form here. Anyway, so
if I can just mention the particular one that I'm speaking about, he's actually on record. Okay. You know, like in Parliament, they call it the Hansard. We've in actual fact got it on record because when something like that is said, we just tell the speaker, "Could we please have that noted?" So it's there. It's history. It's not talk is cheap, but.
Now, here's a good question. This is actually a good use of a super chat here. This is JRR, Junior R, I guess. And he said, how will the ACDP go about the Western Cape independence movement? And let me reframe that. Is the ACDP a proponent or supporter of this secession movement that's taking place in Western Cape? There's so many people talking about it. Is it something you're involved in, or are you just sitting on the sidelines and watching it?
No, we're not sitting on the sidelines. Basically, it's there. We're aware that it's there. I think it's deceptive. I've noticed that the Freedom Front posters talk about it as well. They talk about Cape exit, vote Freedom Front. Chris, they're trying to say that legally they can take it to some internet, maybe The Hague or something like that, and they're going to fight it and whatever. But let's be practical. They're trying to get the colored people on board, and there are a lot of colored people that actually now feel that, let's exit. But I mean, let's just paint a picture here. So they win an election here Do you honestly think that the ANC is going to say, okay, that's it, here are the keys, you can have our naval bases, you can have our airports, you can have our military institutions and structures and everything like that.
Our parliament in Cape Town.
yeah, you can have it all. We're going to just walk away with our tail between our legs. We lost. There's no ways. They fought. How many years did they fight this country? Okay, in a war to take over this country. And again, these guys, I'm sorry, you know that I actually, even once I was told by the leader of one of the parties that's to do with the Cape exit that I'm having a blonde moment now.
No, that's quite all right. Yeah,
I'm having a blonde moment. But the fact is that it's not a practical thing. And in actual fact, he turned around and he said, we're going to do away with all politicians.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do away with politicians. We won't have council. We're going to be run basically by businessmen. We'll run it like a business and whatever like that. Okay, straight away, the first thing, so who makes the profit? Who's going to be behind this whole thing, making sure that there's no corruption, that in actual fact that things work properly? Who's going to, are there going to be taxes? Who's going to benefit from the taxes? Mm-hmm. To talk about something like that, after all that we've gone through, where we're trying to bring races together, we're trying to bring people together and in unity and unify, these guys are trying to split it. Now, please, I'm speaking from myself here, okay? Mm-hmm. We haven't, as a party, sat down and debated it, because in actual fact, we don't even want to go there. It's not practical. It's not going to happen. Let's work within the political system that we've got now, and let's see how we can bring about change and how people can be blessed now.
Well, Helen Duplessis asked the question of me. She says, but is it a good idea to mix religion and politics? The answer I'll give you to that, Helen, is that the reality is that you can't separate religion and politics. There are people of faith all over the world, and it's part of who they are. What I'll say about religion, a person that doesn't particularly show or express my faith publicly, and it's a private matter, is that religion brings a moral basis. All religions bring a moral basis, and people who behave morally tend to be better at governance, just my experience. So if there is a positive influence from that. Now, Tian has said that I don't understand how people can think religion should save our political situation. As far as I'm concerned, religion causes divide. Well, you're right, Tian. Religion can cause divide. But in my experience, religion brings more people together and resolves more issues. The problem is when you have radicals in a faith and you have people who are charlatans who use a faith to hoodwink people into voting for. We see it here in the States all the time. You know, these politicians go to black churches, hey, my brothers and sisters, come vote. It's all bogus. It's bogus. This isn't real people of faith. This isn't real belief. What I'm saying is that you can't divorce the two. Now, here's the funny thing. In all of the elections to date since 1994, religion has been a minor issue amongst most political parties. The Acdp, obviously, faith is a big part of their party position. But for other parties, it's not really been talked. But this election, well, I'll tell you what, it's like watching people in the United States go to rallies. Everybody's bringing up faith and God, and a fair number of these people are just fakes. They're charlatans. Do you want to comment on my thoughts there, Demi? Did I get this right, or is it off the mark?
No, absolutely. Remember, I touched on it earlier on about those false prophets that are actually coming in there. And there is a definite difference between religion, man-made religion, and actually having the faith in our living God. To try and answer the question for the lady that actually came about religion being in politics and whatever, Jesus, they talk about the government's been on his shoulders. Okay. They talk about, Jesus says, give unto Caesar what's due to Caesar. However, he also gives us the ability to actually know which king to choose. They chose good kings, they chose bad kings throughout the whole of history in Israel. So-and-so was a good king and he lasted for 30 years. So-and-so was a bad king, he was only there for 5 years, whatever. But if we're not bringing, I don't want to use the word religion, but if we're not bringing the biblical faith, which is our policies are all based on biblical, on the word of God. And the type of things that we're under attack, we spoke about corporal punishment before, okay? And the school's basically saying they're the only ones. Parents will go to jail if you give your child a hiding. The other things that we're under attack is marriage. But marriage, we've always had a straightforward idea of what marriage is. It's a man and a woman. Now we've been told we have to compromise and we have to be generous and we have to be whatever. Other areas.
No, listen, Demi, listen. I got to interrupt you there. I think it's my personal. You are interfering with my truth. If I want to marry my you, if I want to marry a sheep, it should be my privilege. I'm just saying that. You're a bigot.
If the laws of the land allow you to do that, that's fine. Okay,
I don't think that's fine, but
that's why we have to bring about righteous government into this country, because all the other things that are under attack, is things like they talk about prostitution, they talk about abortion, they talk about pornography and all that. Now, these are all things from the pit of hell that actually destroy people. And if you don't have a government that's going to be able to take that into consideration and to be able to bring in laws where people are protected, then what are we going to have?
Yep.
The USA?
Oh, shots fired. Shots fired. So another super chat here, and then one more comment from a viewer I want to get to, and then I'm going to get back to those two topics we need to talk about before you head out. I have another guest at the top of the hour, so we got a little bit more time with you here. But Brett gave another super chat. Thank you, Brett. Brett must have had payday. It's the end of the month. It's payday. No salty cracks today in Brett's bank account. Thank you for that, Brett. He said, glad the ACDP are actually using 2021 posters. The ANC isn't. That's true. I saw it in Port Elizabeth. They put up posters that were from 2019, and they hung it on a pole so you couldn't see the date, but you can still see the date. It's really sad, but at least you're using posters.
Can I just mention something quickly about those posters?
Absolutely.
Very quickly.
Sure.
Some people have said, we haven't seen ACDP posters. You know what? We don't have the budgets. We don't have the budgets that other people that will give, like the Oppenheimers, 15 million in, George Soros, millions into liberal parties. We basically are reliant on ourselves, on those who are generous enough to be able to put up posters. But I'll tell you something again, remember those prophets in false cloaks. There's a political party that actually a group that broke away from us, and they had 800,000 rands worth of posters that they took down for us in 2019. When we asked for those posters back, what posters? Guess what? We actually, the first rain actually showed that they had their party poster over the ACDP poster. But it gets worse. It gets worse. There's a photograph on WhatsApp the other day. It shows a Freedom Front poster that was ripped open like that. And guess what was under there? DA. So times must be tough. But if you've seen our posters, thank God for that. Thank God for that. And thank you for noticing.
It's salty cracks end of the month time here. So I guess for a lot of people, we're all eating hardtack. We can't eat any lobster tails this month. It's all hardtack. But and then Helen asked a question. This is the last one I'll get to for the viewers at the moment. But she asked this question about, and I don't know that's really the role of a political party to do this, but she's asking, how will the ACDP unite all religions in South Africa? Of course, we know that South Africa famously has many Christian faiths. It also has many Muslims. It has Jews plus some traditional beliefs. I don't really know that's the role of the ACDP to do that, but I would imagine, and you can comment on this if you like, I would imagine that you have no objections to other faiths, and it's a big tent, and people can worship God in their own manner, and you respect that. And I don't know, is this something you want to address, or?
It's simple. It's simple. I actually mentioned it before that we believe in the right to freedom of religion. However, if your religion, in actual fact, endangers the people of the country, which in actual fact, we a few years back, because of the ANC allowing certain Muslim factions into the country, that it was identified that there were training camps on farms in the Limpopo and other places around the country, which is horrific to think. When you look at the attacks that are on Mozambique, and the fact that in actual fact, those camps were in the country just north of it, and they were able to destabilize that country, we need to then say, hang on. This faith, is it acting within the realms of our law? Is it in actual fact harmful or endangering our country? But as far as just worshiping what you want to worship, well, then that's fine.
I think can't say any better than that. Okay, let's get back to two topics we're going to talk about here before we wrap up your time and your mother-in-law gets to have a lunch. She's probably getting pretty hungry at this stage. But okay, so the first was
it's 4:00. I think it's after 4 already, and they sat down at 12. So the family is doing a hang of a lot of talking.
Oh my goodness. Well, it must be a heck of a gathering then. That's pretty cool. It's nice to actually be able to get together again after all this ridiculous lockdown. We haven't even talked about that. We won't get into that, but the National Coronavirus Command Council, there couldn't be a more Stalin-esque sounding organ than that. The communist members of the ANC, which is all the leadership, really would fit in very well in Moscow in 1936 when the purges were taking place, or when the Cultural Revolution took place in China. They'd be perfect. They'd sit right in there. Nobody noticed. They'd be part of the team. But two things here to talk about very quickly. You talk about it's not just the ANC. Now, the DA likes to say that where they govern, things work. The out of order index, which was it's admittedly it's a subjective index put together by News 24, and it rates municipalities around the country, not the government rating, but actually a media house doing it. The highest ranking municipality or metro in South Africa, who actually was ironically eThekwini, Durban, which people in Durban are like, "Are you high?" It just couldn't be the best city in the country. But Cape Town came in second in that, and they said it's because they didn't spend all their budget like 3 years ago. I think that's ludicrous. But even there, the best ones are at 65, 68 on a scale of 100. I mean, it's not exactly anything to write home about. The DA has ruled the mother city for a long time without the need for a coalition. And they've ruled the Western Cape for a long time without the need for a coalition. And if we're honest about it, there are challenges, some of which are their responsibility, some of which are a consequence of the national government and funding and national competencies like the police and transportation, stuff like that. So you've mentioned it's not just the ANC. The leader of the Cape Independence Party, a small party, Jack Miller, came on my program and he said, no, wait, we're not targeting the ANC. They're a non-factor here in the mother city. We're going after the DA. The DA needs to be given a wake-up call because they just rule with an iron. Well, he didn't say it, my words, rule with an iron fist, and they ignore other parties. Now, is that the direction you're talking about, that the DA needs a wake-up call perhaps, and you need to listen to other folks in the metropolitan, or am I misrepresenting that?
No, you're spot on. And in South Africa, your South African viewers will understand when we say that the DA are getting a snotty.
Yeah.
That means, they are definitely getting a snotty. And they're getting to a point where they're getting so worried that they're starting, it's the dirty tactics again, a vote for the small parties, a vote for the ANC, don't actually break take away from us that in actual fact gives you the service that we're giving you. They are, Jack was right. The ANC is not really a factor. They might increase a little bit. They might lose, because there's a lot of disgruntled ANC African people who in actual fact want change as much as anybody else wants change. So the ANC, I think if they're going to grow, it's going to be quite a small growth. The DA, I don't want to predict anything, but I'm telling you that the polls and what people are talking about in the streets and on radio shows, the DA are going to lose their majority. And I think that's going to be one of the best things that could happen for the city of Cape Town, is that they lose their majority and they're going to have to go into some very formal government of unity. Okay, a multi-party government of unity. But I love a clip that I watched Helen Zille making the other day. Okay, well, actually it was a 2019 one, where she was talking to her people in a Congress, and she was actually bringing to their attention that they mustn't rule out a coalition with the ANC. They mustn't rule it out. That was 2019, okay? Guess what? Their leader now, Steenhuisen, is now talking about a coalition with the ANC. So the DA would rather have a coalition with the ANC that they badmouth, they disrespect in national parliament, they belittle in national parliament. In actual fact, they even do it in the House, even in our chambers. But would they rather do that? I see it that the smaller parties are growing. There will be growth. I'm hoping for that us, the Acdp, it's going to be a good growth, okay? I'm not talking 1 or 2 seats. I'm talking about 10, 20 seats. But then, as Helen Zille said in her 2019 clip, we will go into this form of coalition with the ANC, but on our terms. And that's exactly what I said to somebody yesterday. If we go into some form of cooperative government with the DA, it'll be on our terms. We were burnt once. We won't be burnt twice.
Well, to be fair, Demi, John Steenhuisen is disputed that and said that that's not the case. There are conflicting reports coming out now, so it's very hard to figure out what's actually going on. Yes, there was an audio recording of Helen saying something in 2019 along those lines, but Steenhuisen has said repeatedly in this election cycle they will not form coalitions with anyone. Now, I saw Times Live the other day saying that they interviewed him last week, and in the interview, they claimed that he said that they would enter a coalition with the ANC everywhere except Nelson Mandela Bay. So, I mean, the media, I don't know what to believe anymore because the media are dishonest here. So, but whatever the case is, a coalition with ANC, if any party considers that, it's a foolish notion, I think. And I think that's we can definitely say that about them.
If I could quickly just jump in.
Sure.
I've got a couple of clips that I should send to you so that you can actually see what we're talking about here.
Okay.
But if the DA can go into a coalition with the EFF, they'll go into a coalition with anybody. They've done it before. There are two situations where they've actually trusted the EFF. But in actual fact, they got themselves burnt. They got themselves badly burnt.
Well, in Tshwane, they didn't go into coalition, but the EFF voted with them. They caucused with them there. So but it's essentially the same thing, just not formal agreement. But now the other thing you want to talk about is the city of Cape Town. Fruitless and wasteful expenditures, wasting money.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that very briefly before you head out?
Yeah. You know, what's absolutely wonderful is that about 2 months ago, just before we were sort of closing down shop because everybody went into election mode, I had the opportunity to make a speech. And again, this is how you controlled as a small party. You're told you've got 13 minutes, but we've actually got 3,500 pages of agenda. We have to now be selective.
Well, listen, Demi, we've seen that before her too here with what I call the Unaffordable Care Act, what's called the Affordable Care Act here in the States, Obamacare. Nancy Pelosi famously said, "Just vote for the bill. You can read it afterwards." So it sounds the same.
Right. So I was cheeky and I got 9 minutes and I was able to spend some quality time on the speech. And what I brought up was about the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. You mentioned the rollovers. That's how they do it. Okay, that's how they give you this impression that the city is working for you because look at our look at what we've spent of our budget. Well, 91%, 92% sounds quite good, but when you have rolled over a couple of billion rand, you've rolled it over to the next year's budget. From sort of 83%, you now go up to 90-odd percent. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Sure. So it's manipulation. But what I said there was one particular incident where the city and its staff actually were involved in 440 million rands worth of fruitless and irregular expenditure. And what came out of the report afterwards, it said, greater care. But this is now supposedly how we're going to correct the situation of this one item of 440 million. Greater care ought to be exercised in respect of understanding of key pricing elements. Greater care ought to be exercised in respect of understanding the key compulsory requirements that are set by legislation and regulators. In other words, national sets regulations and the city of Cape Town just do what they want to do. So it then goes on to say, and the investigated outcome was that a number of service providers should not have been awarded these contracts, 440 billion. But the most important thing is there's an organization called, an international organization that I mentioned called a Corruption Watch Report. And that was released and it was, they titled it, South Africa Needs Clean Hands. City of Cape Town was ranked 5th amongst the country's municipalities with the highest number of reported corruption allegations from 125 different municipalities around the world. We were ranked 5th, okay? Fruitless and wasteful expenditure, okay? According to the report, the type of corruption that was reported by the whistleblowers, by the way, whistleblowers get killed. They get taken out in this country. So, you say, please, whistleblowers, come and tell us what's happening. They're too scared. And those that do come forward, they're slaughtered.
Well, I can say no, you know, Babita Deokaran, say her name, Babita Deokaran, murdered. She revealed she was a whistleblower on this PPE corruption going on in the ANC, and she was executed. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. What they're basically saying in Cape Town, irregularities in procurement processes, 17%, abuse of power, 18%, bribes, 14%, fraud, 7%, irregularities in getting employment, 6%. The city that works for you.
Nah, sounds like maybe it's not working so well. Well, I mean, maybe that peels back the veneer a little bit about what's happening in the mother city. A few years ago, all the attention was focused on, you know, climate change causing, you know, drought in Cape Town. Undoubtedly, climate change may have played a role, but we know that, of course, that 35 to 40% of the water that's delivered from the reservoirs disappears in leaky pipes. It's lost. We see these common taps in townships where people leave them on. We also see there's no brown water reuse policy, like taking water, instead of treating it, using it to water lawns instead of using the water you've cleaned. So, you know, it's crazy. But of course, now the reservoirs are full because rain has come back. And so
we're
anyway,
over 100% full now. The dams are about 100.7% at the moment. We thank God for that. But we still need to fix the pipes that you're talking about.
Exactly.
And you know what? We've got an industrial area called Montague Gardens. It is so bad with old. Those pipes are over 40 years old. They need to be changed now. They will close down the whole operation. That whole industrial area will be closed down if they had to go in there to go and sort it out. Absolutely. How are they going to do it? When are they going to do it? We actually need transparency. We actually need to get the officials into a situation. And I've often warned them. I've been around for 17 years, and I listen to some of these officials, and I've told them, I want to just warn you that the DA is not always going to be in control of the city. And there are people out there who are going to remember who you actually called master. The people who are the masters are the ratepayers. They're the ones that you should be working for, because when the DA is out and there's a new administration in, or a multi-party one, you want your job. Then you should be serving the people unbiasedly. That's it.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I want to say, first off, I'm feeling guilty about your mother-in-law. Let's get you out there. But
no, don't worry.
But I also got
I have lunch and supper with her every day. You know what I mean?
Okay. But we've also got to get ready for our next guest, Rafiwe Nchike, the DA candidate in Ekurhuleni, where the DA has an opportunity to potentially remove the ANC up there in that major city of 3.4 million people. So she'll be back on my channel here at the top of the hour. So I'm going to thank you. Bye-bye, Donkey Kealaboa. Thank you so much for your time, Demi. It's really been a pleasure to have you on, and I want to wish you and your party good luck, and let's see if we can improve on the figures from 2016. Sounds like that's going to happen. This may be the year of the small party. We'll see. We'll see what happens on Monday. But thank you so much. I'll give you a chance to say any final words. Give people, maybe bring people to the ACDP standard on Monday, and even today with special voting going on this weekend for people who can't make it to the polls on Monday. Anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
South Africa, God wants to bless you. I'm saying this to your South African audience. God wants to bless you, but we know what we have to do. We can't compromise on our faith. God expects certain things. Do it. He's going to bless us. And I want to just end. I'm not a politician, Chris, but I'm a person, that the vessel that God uses to be the light. If the DA or the ANC had to, seriously, in our chamber, if the DA comes up with a policy, or they come up with a motion that I think is going to be good for everybody, I support it. If I don't think so, and it's the same, if the ANC brings something to the table, if it's good, I support it, because it's got to bless everybody. So I'm just saying, guys, you've heard us, what we had to say today. If I've offended anybody, I'm sorry, but I had to tell the truth. I say it the way I see it. And please put your cross by the cross.
Well, there you go. It's a great
line. It is. There it is.
There it is.
There we are, Chris.
There you are.
And just quickly, Chris, you see this arrow that comes to the cross from the left?
Yes.
And the arrow that comes from the right?
Yes.
You know what that depicts? That depicts the people from different groupings. The left wing and the right wing brought their politics to the cross. And you see the white washes everything with snow, and the red is the blood of Jesus that's around us. This is not just something that some artists put together. That is meaningful. put your cross by the cross. And Chris, thank you for the opportunity. You're a star.
Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. And with that, we're going to let you go. Really do appreciate tuning in. Demi Dudley from the African Christian Democratic Party there in the mother city of Cape Town, where interesting things are happening. Let me let you go, Demi. Have a good late lunch there with your mother-in-law. Okay, cheers.
Thank you. God bless.